Hello and welcome to our Eduro Learning video series, Let's Get Connected. In this series, we will hear from 10 connected teachers from all around the world as they share their top tips for getting connected, ways to connect your classroom and your students, to advice for ways to bring parents on board with a connected classroom, and so much more. My name is Chrissy Hallier and I'll be your host throughout this series. I've been a connected teacher with a connected classroom for over 10 years now, and I can't wait to introduce you to some of the connected educators that I've had the privilege of getting connected to and working on global collaboration projects with. A genuine concern for many teachers is where exactly does digital citizenship fit in the connected classroom? Today, our awesome connected teachers join us to share where they believe digital citizenship fits in the connected classroom. Enjoy the conversation.
It's digital citizenship, kind of this thing that feels like it's sometimes added on to some of the content that you're working through, but it has to be embedded directly in what you're doing, which is why that blogging thing was very powerful. The blogging platform was really powerful because the kids never thought, oh, I'm doing digital citizenship. It was, I'm sharing and I'm relating with another person, but I'm not even flustered by the formatting of that. You know, it was, I looked back to some of the feedback that I got from some of the students, and they had incredibly positive feedback about this idea of sharing their artwork with other students from around the world. And I thought, man, these are kids who sometimes are like sheepish to share, their sketchbook. But at the same token, they were totally welcoming this idea of posting images of their work online and wanting to get feedback. And I thought, that's so crazy and so cool. And I just thought these kids are so digitally ready to do that, and maybe even more so open. That layer of the computer screen as a buffer actually was an interesting way to help them improve their craft, which I think is pretty cool.
I see digital citizenship as a key piece of a connected classroom because it offers those guidelines and supports, I think, for both students and teachers as they're trying to navigate this constantly changing landscape of tools and of ways to connect. And I think it gives a chance for students to really think about how do they create and manage their digital identity and act safely and ethically online. But when you're part of a connected classroom, you have this authentic opportunity, right? When you're needing to talk to people in different places and you're needing to post a lot of information online. And so you can talk about privacy and what it means to share something or not share something, and how you might be aware of your tone or your biases through digital interactions in a way that feels really relevant, I think, to students and just goes along and fits with what your goals are as a connected classroom, and it just pairs naturally with digital citizenship.
I remember doing a project with some students many years ago now, and we were working with another class in another part of the world, and we'd gone back and forth, and there were language barriers and time zone barriers and all sorts of things. And I remember the moment a student turned around to me and he said, you know what, I've realized that life is a lot better if you can learn to disagree with someone without being disagreeable. And I thought it was a really insightful thing that student said, this idea that you can actually communicate with someone in a way that is respectful and polite and everything else. And I guess now we call that digital citizenship, this idea of simply living nicely in a world with other people. And probably for the same reason, I don't call it a digital camera anymore. I just call it a camera. Digital citizenship is really just citizenship. It's about teaching people to get along and be nice with each other. And we see some pretty awful examples of that in politics and all sorts of other examples around the world now. And the world is a lot better place when people learn to play nicely. And, our kids are growing up in a world where that blurred line between it being digital and being real, it's a very blurred line these days. So teaching kids just how to be nice people, whether it's digital or whether it's analog, makes no difference. It's just about being a good citizen.
When I'm educating my students about digital citizenship, I don't necessarily use that language. I do a little bit, but we talk more about, the etiquette of being online, what it means to be safe. It's embedded through a lot of lessons. When we, for example, talk about commenting on a blog, we talk about yappy. What does that mean? And also evaluating when we look at other blogs or blog posts or comments online, we evaluate, did these people follow Yappy? Oh, they left a last name by accident. Maybe we should message, that educator and let them know. So they're involved, they're in there, and they're also aware. They're giving feedback too to others.
Digital citizenship is one of my strongest passions. I'm lucky enough that with my co-author Lee Crockett, we've written books on this, and our latest one's on growing global digital citizens. And it is, in essence, the same sets of ethical and moral behaviours that you would expect all the way through. I often come back to the kids when we're working in these things and say, keep in mind how you would feel when you say something if it was being said to you. Put yourself in someone else's shoes. My expectation, even when my students are doing research in class, is that they come along and they're all citing every single thing that they do. That's one of the reasons why I like using OneNote, because if you drag something offline and drop it into your OneNote, it puts a citation in there. If it's not cited when they're doing research, it's then deleted out of the shared documents because it hasn't been ethically approached. Digital citizenship is like real world citizenship. You can equate the two, they sit side by side. Anything that you would do in the real world applies in the digital world and vice versa. Really strict guidelines on how they go through and do it, but they're guidelines, not rules, because there's so much flexibility in what we're doing. And for me, it's critical that the kids reflect on how they're behaving, the outcomes, and also how would it feel if it was them in that position. So is it an integrated approach to digital citizenship? Absolutely. When I look at the school, because I run a K to 13 digital citizenship program, we talk to the kids about what are our expectations, but that's so that there's a global overview of what do we want. We've got different programs set up for junior school, for middle school, for senior school. They're all coached in appropriate language. We go even to the extent of making sure that the language is suitable for year groups. But the expectation is it's embedded into every single class. Your research skills, online behaviour skills, all of this is an integrated part of every single class. It can't be any other way. As soon as you isolate it out into one little block, then the kids start to go, well, actually it only matters in that one little block. It has to be something you do all the time, that you reinforce. Everyone is a teacher of digital citizenship, the same as everybody is a teacher of languages, everybody's a teacher of technology. It has to be integrated.
In my classroom, it's kind of like an everyday thing. It's embedded in my lessons, and it's something that it's sort of just second nature in the classroom. As we start something, I usually pay attention to, okay, what am I doing with technology today, and figure out a way to incorporate it. So I know when we're doing a lesson on email or things like that, that's where I start talking about like privacy and safety and, what sorts of information do we put out. But we're sending an email to me about like, oh, I needed an extension on this or things like that. But it's still a way that I'm like, okay, I'm still going to discuss the fact like you should not be sending me your phone number right now. Or when we're doing something like blogging, it's a great way that we start talking about copyright and what sorts of images and videos that they can be using. And so it's really just become second nature in my classroom. It's like I start my tech lesson and it's like, oh, also going to slip in something with digital citizenship. So it's really not another thing that I need to do because it's already deeply embedded in what I do every day.
I think digital citizenship or citizenship is what we do as teachers. I think there's a lot of crossover there. It depends on what grade level I think you're teaching. For the primary school, obviously the teacher needs to be the main conduit to connect. The way that I've personally done it in the past is to model. So we would have a class Twitter account or a class blog, and then we'd write posts or respond together. And therefore we'd work in some digital citizenship, snippets or lessons without saying today we're doing digital citizenship. We'd work that into to what we do. And actually now that we've started down that path, it's a good thing that our leadership has said, well, this is an important thing that we need to be teaching the kids, and we've developed, based on Common Sense Media, our digital literacy or digital citizenship framework that we have embedded in units, or that we do standalone, or just in projects in general, like a mystery Skype that, there's a lot of before and after type of digital citizenship practices that are relevant and then get worked into these sorts of projects or lessons.
Okay, digital citizenship. When I think about that, when I'm connecting with other people, I feel like it's at that ground level of how do we act online? How do we use our manners online for digital citizenship? How are we grateful to an author who took his or her time to be with us? It's really just showing and modeling those basic digital citizenship skills. When connecting with the digital citizenship, it's more just-in-time learning. Like we talk at that moment, like, okay, so we just had someone talk with us. What's the best thing for us to do? And when it's finished, we debrief that author Skype session, and then we write a letter of thanks or something along those lines.
When I first got started, this was all kind of new, and people were really scared about that. And at one point, I had a fairly unfiltered access in my classroom, which was a little bit scary, especially since for a short time, I was one-to-one laptops in my classroom, which is a whole nother story. And so, I started right away because I had like 4th and 5th and 6th graders, and I didn't want, and fortunately, one of the projects got into over blogs and Twitter was I hooked up with a teacher somewhere on the East Coast of the United States. And we did a project where we split up different safety aspects of being on the internet, and then groups in my class and groups of students in his class tackled those different pieces, some on our own, some collaboratively, and then posted it somewhere in Google. Some were like posters, and some were videos, and whatever, and they were all about being safe online. And we used to spend a fair amount of time, have discussions, or somebody got on a site they weren't supposed to, because I had spent time, what do you do if you end up at a site accidentally that, hit that, don't just, close your laptop and then bring it to me, or hit the back button, or, get out of there. And because if kids don't know, you tend to have a crowd around the computer or the laptop going, well, look at that, and so, but when you've given them an idea of what they can do, and their parents love that, because I used to, all my kids had their own blogs, and we were video conferencing, and we were doing other social media stuff. We were using Flickr a lot, which is a photo and video place on the web, and so every year, even though I was rolling my class, I used to get a class of 4th graders and keep them for 3 years. Every year, I'd explain to my parents what we were going to do, and I'd have them sign a release for all that. And so I'd always have at least 1 or 2 parents that didn't want to sign that. As soon as I'd get them in and I'd show them what we were doing and we talk about it, they'd, oh, you're doing that. And my kids learned how to be safe online, because that's scaring me at home. I don't know what to do about that. And you're teaching them that. Holy cow, yes, let's do that. And then it's like anything like that you do in your classroom, you revisit it as needed. A problem pops up and you talk about it, and we'd get, because I was at a very at-risk school, we'd get new students now and again, and sometimes they'd stick out like sore thumbs, and that they had already developed bad habits on the web. And the other students in class would, they wouldn't come and tell on them. They'd say, we don't do that here, or you can't do that, or that's, here's why that's not what you're supposed to do. And I think that's a little bit different in upper elementary than it would be in middle school or high school. But, kids still have, because we had talked so much about it, I think they'd really taken it to heart. And so mostly they were, very, they knew that if they blew it, we were going to not be able to do
Many
that.
teachers are concerned about digital citizenship and feel the need to teach all about cyberbullying and safety and all of those rules before they ever get online, and to make sure that the children understand all of it. I think it's much better to do it while you're actually working, that when things come up, I know some of the ways that I've done this is I've worked on projects with friends before where we were in Google Docs together. And if anything came up in the Google Doc where one student might have said something that wasn't so nice to another student, we would pull the children over together in a Skype call and say, this is what just happened. We see what's going on here. How can you handle this? Just exactly the way you would do it if two children in your class were having a disagreement. However you would handle that is how you handle it online.
I hope you enjoyed that conversation today about where digital citizenship fits in the connected classroom, and hopefully you now have an idea about where it's going to fit for you in your connected classroom. If you like this format, hearing from lots of different perspectives on a single topic, then please click on that like button below. Subscribe to our channel to get all of the videos in this series. Turn on the notifications to find out when we're live on YouTube, and be the first to see the next installment in the Let's Get Connected series. Do you have any questions about having a connected classroom or being a connected teacher? Or would you like to see a specific series related to anything about education and technology? Leave us a comment below and let us know. If you'd like to see even more resources to help you in the classroom after you've watched this series, then head on over to our website and check out all of our free resources. We have more videos, blog posts, some online courses all about teaching and learning and coaching in the digital world.